Hi everyone, good evening. We're going to get started soon. Hope that you are all doing well. I'm going to give it a few moments just for people to join and for Maisha to join us. Maisha, I'm sending you a request to join the live right now. So you should have got it. Okay, we're adding you, Maisha. We may have a few difficulties here. Just give us a second. Yay!
I think we did it. Yay.
I'm proud. I'm super proud.
Me too. Oh, good to see you.
Good to see you too. I'm really excited, as you can tell from my smile.
Yes.
Well,
Big and beautiful. I'm excited.
perfect. All right. Well, I guess let's just start by welcoming people. Thank you for the people that are joining us so far. I'm sure people will trickle in as they always do. Today, we're just going to have a very laid back conversation. No stress, no pressure or expectations. Maisha is someone who's extremely dear to me. So I'm just really honored to be in your presence in this way, Maisha. I will start with our opening. So welcome to Every Black Body live series, a space for conversations to bring a deeper understanding to the intersections of Black lives and support collective approaches to end HIV for every Black body. Every Black Body live series centers the voices, experiences, and leadership of Black people. This live series is hosted by United We Rise, a pioneering Black-led intersectional initiative focused on uniting and mobilizing a collective force to end the HIV epidemic and uplift the quality of life for Black people. United We Rise is partly funded by Gilead Sciences. One of the key focus areas of United We Rise is sexual and gender identity. We value sex positivity and sexual expression as a form of liberation, to love our bodies and hold an affirming space free from sexism, misogyny, and male-centeredness is central to our liberation from traditional expectations of gender, relationship structures, sexuality, and sexual roles. For September, we are hosting a two-part discussion on sexual healing. I'm your host, Catherine Labiran, one of the planning committee members for United We Rise, also a writer, researcher, human rights advocate. And today I am joined by Maisha. Maisha Najuma, as a founder of Black Girl Tantra LLC, is a tantric shaman healer and a fat, queer, Black co-parent and former social worker. Maisha holds the door open between worlds and the mirror up for BIPOC folk of sizes, genders, and orientations to drop shame and transform pain into medicine through deep pleasure, love, ancestral connection, and erotically embodied joy. Maisha centers QTI BIPOC queerness and outside of the boxness in their work, which is grounded in ancient sacred healing practices. Her unique sensual blending of shamanic medicine, tantric medicine, trans ancestral mediation, and erotic embodiment is key to healing sexual and spiritual wounds as a result of interpersonal, cultural, and ancestral trauma. That's the best biography I've ever read. I just have to say it was a joy to say it. Beautifully written. But it's such an honor to be here with you, Maisha. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
So before we get into the questions, I want to acknowledge that while we do not intend for today's content to be triggering, it may bring up some triggering thoughts and memories for you. If it does, please try your best to listen to what your body needs in that moment, including if that means taking time away. At the end, we'll make time for Q&A, but feel free to drop questions and comments as we go along. We want this to be as interactive as possible, so feel free to share reactions, thoughts, anything that you would like to in the comment box. So let's just get straight into it. Okay.
Yeah.
So given that many people who are watching this live have varying levels of knowledge on sex and sexuality, can you share the definition of Tantra that Black Girl Tantra operates by?
Sure. So for me, Tantra is, well, the Sanskrit word, Tantra is a Sanskrit word that means to weave. And the way that I use it and the way that I've learned it in my training really includes that weaving of who I am as a part of sensuality, sacred sexuality, spirituality, being human, being spirit, all of the things, right? All of the things that I learn in my practice, that I've learned over the years in shamanism as well. That all gets included in the Black Girl Tantra style, including my blackness, including my fatness, my queerness. And so for me, what I tell people is that Tantra is the erotic embodiment of living your best life and being in your fullness and your power. That's what it is. So it's everything. It's not just sex and it's not without sex. It's
Mm-hmm.
everything, and it's conscious living.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Conscious living and conscious embodiment.
Beautiful. So, of course, we're grounding ourselves in this current moment where there's so much going on for people, from
Mm-hmm.
pandemic to personal issues that people are trying to navigate. And I'm just wondering how your offerings have shifted throughout this time. Are you still able to maintain the same level of connection with the communities that you serve, especially given the definition that you just offered to us?
Absolutely. There has been a shift, but interestingly, I had already started doing seeing clients online because I had so many clients who weren't here in Atlanta where
Mm-hmm.
I am. So I had already been seeing people in other states, and that just ended up picking up more,
Mm-hmm.
and which actually gave me the opportunity to find new ways to erotically be embodied, to touch people energetically if I'm not able to touch them physically, right? And to give people even more of an opportunity
Mm-hmm.
to practice and to learn how to do these things for themselves. Because in the end of the day, it's about self intimacy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually gotten, my practice has gotten bigger because we're at a time of enlightenment. Everyone is awakening. Consciousness is rising all over the place. And everyone is like, I am ready to be in my power. I'm tired of sitting on the pot. It's time to get off,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's time to get up and start doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I've just had an influx of clients since COVID.
Right.
And that's when I realized it's time for me to step my game up too,
Mm-hmm.
because this is about doing this for the world at the end of the day. We have to heal ourselves so then we can help spread our magic and our medicine to the world.
Mm-hmm.
It's the bottom line.
Right. And just to follow up on that, I'm wondering, what has that stepping up process looked like for you? Because I'm just like, Maisha, just so powerful. So I'm wondering, what steps that you've been taking in your own knowledge, and to progress on your own journey this time?
Well, my biggest step was this teaching. So I've always been teaching, so that's not new. But what I did start, and I've actually done a program before, but this is my first time starting and creating this tantric shaman healer apprenticeship program that I started. So it's a process to help people go through some of the things that help them get erotically embodied and to actually do the same work that I'm doing, because we need more people of color doing it. And so what I had to learn was that I can't keep hiding. So
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing this work for years, but people are like, I've never heard of you. I don't do it's because I've only been working with my clients and I don't really put myself out there on Instagram and all of
Yeah.
these things that often,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that was my lesson, is I have to get over fear. I have to get over anxiety. I have to get over fear of persecution,
Right.
right? All of these fears that come up from past lives, from past life experiences.
Yeah.
I had to do a transformation, right?
Yeah.
And rebirth into teaching what needs to be taught.
Mm-hmm.
And that means we need more people of color out there doing this work from a spiritually and erotically embodied place. And that's what I'm here to teach. So I'm ready now. I'm
Okay.
ready now. That's what I learned. That's what I learned.
Perfect, because I would love if we can just segue into learning a bit more about your journey. Because, you know, through reading your bio and also just knowing you, I know that you say that sexual trauma was a messenger rather than the inception of your desire to begin this work. So can you share how you knew that you were spiritually and ancestrally being called to do this work?
Yes. So I've always been an erotically embodied person. I think in some ways I didn't know that I was, even if people around me saw it. And that's when I realized the consciousness piece was something that I needed more of, right?
Mm-hmm.
Around sexuality, because sexually speaking, I was out there having fun. I was doing all the things. I was practicing. I was learning. I was growing. And I would heal people that I had sex with, right? I would be able to talk with people and heal people just by having conversations without judgment about their sexuality. And like, I did that naturally since high school.
Mm-hmm.
Since high school. I just was always non-judgmental, because we're all free.
Right.
We're allowed to be in our bodies, right? Even with my sexual trauma,
Mm-hmm.
even having had sexual trauma, I'm really, really just, it was actually in my shamanic training that I realized, oh, this is the work I'm supposed to be doing to help others. Like, officially. I've always done it unofficially.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's time to officially do this, right? So I think that a part of my psyche knew that I was a healer because I became a massage therapist early in life, right? So I was always a healer, but it took me, social constructs make you feel like you're not allowed to be sexually active and excited. And, they called me promiscuous. I'm so tired of that word, right? So I was promiscuous. No, I wasn't. I was a sexually embodied being, right? Erotically embodied being, which is what we all are. So there's all these stigmas that Black people have to deal with, and that's what it took me. It took me a while to get through those stigmas. And religion also can play a part in that. It didn't for me, but I know it does for others, and it didn't for me directly, but it does because we're all connected. We're all connected. So that means society is going to still put that, the stigma on me that I'm not allowed to have sex, enjoy pleasure, and be free in my body. I've always enjoyed being naked anywhere I go. I'm like, it's a river, it's a lake, it's an ocean. What do I need clothes on for?
That's a good question. I ask myself that.
Right? Yeah, and that's not even about being sexy or about sex, but we always put nakedness in with sex.
Yes.
So therefore, it's bad and dirty and wrong to even be naked.
Mm-hmm.
So how can you be free if we can't even be in our bodies freely naked,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's what I do. I work with people to help them feel free in their body and free energetically too, and naked. I tell my clients all the time, it's time to get naked energetically.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're about to do.
Yeah. And what do you think?
That's where you start.
Do you think that some people have a block towards that? Like, what's the usual response when you are kind of taking people through this undressing process, this process of being vulnerable? Like, do you typically sense resistance, or like, what is the kind of reaction that you get when you ask that of your clients?
I think I got more resistance in the beginning.
Hmm.
And I think that's because I was unsure and I was afraid and I was projecting,
Mm.
right? I was projecting that people would not know how to handle this, right? Because that's sort of how I've been, people have responded to me
Mm-hmm.
in my life, right? So people have responded in ways like, this is wrong. You shouldn't be doing this.
Right.
So for me, I realized once I was really okay with it in a deep, deep intrinsic way, where it's in all of the ways, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, once I was solid and grounded in that, then people started coming to me and needing that and wanting to get naked right away.
Mm-hmm.
And I offer the space to do that because I'm open, I'm gentle, I'm compassionate, and I'm able to help people see. I mean, it's part of my magic, really.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like I'm doing anything, I'm just being me.
Yeah.
I'm really just being me, and people are like, I'm ready. And if they're not ready, they may not come back. But I haven't had that happen in a long time
Yeah.
because I've put out energetically, the energetic light is on. The
Hmm.
energetic light came on,
Hmm.
right? You know, the neon sign came on and said open for business. So that's how being erotically embodied can help you energetically put out what you're supposed to be doing in the world. And people will come. The
Yeah.
people who it's for will come. And that's what I finally had to realize.
Right. That's so true.
Yeah.
I have so many questions. I'm going to try and reel it in. Um,
Yes.
but so for many of us, part of the work about learning more about sex is to unlearn misconceptions that we've been taught. Are there
Yes.
the things that just by me saying that you think about, you're like, oh, I had to unlearn that before I could begin
Mhm.
learning?
Yeah. So many things. One, of course, was that I'm fast, right? All of these negative connotations of what it means to enjoy sex, right? So I had to unlearn that.
Mm-hmm.
But also, my body had to unlearn shame.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a much tougher process because your body gets triggered. You know, my body, I say, I'm saying you like in general, but I know everyone has a different experience with this. So I prefer to say I. So in my experience, you know, shame lived deeply, very deeply. Even though I was enjoying sex and having fun and exploring, just exploring, I would have shame that would come up. And so I had to unlearn shame, you know? I had to unlearn it on a really deep level, and where my body would literally feel shame after orgasm and up until orgasm. So even before I came out, so I thought I was straight until I was like 20, 21. When I had orgasm, or when I was about to achieve orgasm, I would try to stop. My body would literally try to stop itself from achieving orgasm because every time I had an orgasm, a rush of shame would rush over my body like a waterfall. And then I felt like shit. Oh, can I curse? I felt like shit after sex. So I didn't want to keep going through that. So I kept trying to stop the orgasms from happening.
Yeah.
But they kept happening anyway because I couldn't stop it because I'm that fucking erotic,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I couldn't help it. I'm like, I could have orgasms even if people weren't touching me,
Right.
right? So that shame had to be unlearned. And I had to learn that it was okay for me to be in this body
Mm-hmm.
and to experience pleasure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. I feel like so many of the things that you just mentioned resonates not only with experiences that I've had with other people, but just on the journey that so many people have to navigate to try and become more sexually embodied.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering, given that one of your main focuses is just sexual trauma and helping people heal from it, what advice would you give someone who has had a recent sexually traumatic experience and doesn't know where to start?
Well, see, that one's going to be different for everybody,
Mm-hmm.
especially because this is why I do erotic astrology readings, because everyone's going to have a different lens and a different way that they experience trauma
Mm-hmm.
and the way that they heal from it, as well as like how they reach out, how they choose to reach out. So it's a difficult thing to figure out how to answer, except for, so in general, what I would say is that reach out first to someone that you know that you can trust, just to be able to be a witness. That's it. Without advice, without, making you feel like you're a pariah,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which can happen in certain communities, right? So it's more like finding that person. And then if you can't find that person, to reach out and find someone like a therapist or a healer. I typically recommend therapy, people who are, especially if it's like very recent, someone that you can talk. Therapy is helpful. But I would even go as far as to say like a more embodied
Mm-hmm.
talk therapist who does sort of the holistic
Right.
piece, because people are realizing talk therapy is not enough, and you really need to get in your body and learn to be in your body as soon as possible, so that, because we all can disassociate after these types of experiences, but you need someone who's going to be able to walk you through it at your pace. not at their pace, but at your pace, right? Because everyone's got a different pace, because everyone's got a different way of healing, and multiple traumas on top of multiple traumas on top of multiple traumas of just living in this white supremacist world,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. And so, because we're talking about all the trauma that people are holding, and then I'm thinking about you as the person who many people come to be a guide and to help with their healing process. And I'm wondering what you do in terms of like your own boundaries and how you care for yourself as you're holding people and this work in this way.
Well, my work is very unique, so it's very different from like if you went to a therapist.
Right.
So, and I make sure that I use not somebody. So when I first became a social worker and I was trying to do it therapy the way that they taught me to do it, I realized even in grad school, I was like, no, this isn't, this is the antithesis of what healing, how healing happens. If I'm looking at it through this person's, this white man and, this white professor's lens,
Mm-hmm.
where we literally argued in the middle of class and the class took sides because I said it's okay to hug
Mm-hmm.
a client. And that was just not okay in white supremacist world.
Yeah.
So that is why intimacy is so important. So for me, I'm able to have boundaries because I talk about boundaries. I talk about consent, right? You don't have to do anything you don't want to do. And I'm here to hold space for whatever it is that you need to work on in this moment. And I encourage people to take care of themselves,
Right.
right? So I don't know if I answered your question, but it really, for me, it's about allowing people to be in a safe space, safe enough, right? But also, I take care of myself by taking baths and showers, and I have my sound bowls. I talk to my ancestors. I talk to their ancestors. That's why I don't typically talk about this. I haven't in a while. I haven't ever said this out loud live, but I use what is called trans ancestral mediation, which actually came to me in a dream.
Wow.
Those words, like my ancestors literally said, you are going to do trans ancestral mediation. And I was like, what is that? I don't even know what that is, but I had to write it down.
Yeah.
Right. So it's those kinds of things. I help people connect to their ancestors so then they're grounded enough to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think we go to therapists, and therapists, the way that therapy has been created is like they are all fixed and we're coming to them, to fix us.
Mm-hmm.
And that does not work. That never works.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not for very long. There are some benefits. I was in therapy since I was 15. So I'm not knocking therapy.
Yeah.
But what I am saying is that we have to look at it in a much broader way, particularly when we're talking about people of color, particularly when we're talking about ancestral pieces that are actually rooted in the trauma that we experience,
Mm-hmm.
in our sexual trauma.
Yeah.
So all of that has to come into account. So I dance, I move, I move the energy, and that's how I don't let any trauma and things get pull me into a place of darkness that I can't get out of or anything like that. So I
Yeah.
hope that answered your question.
No, you definitely did. And what I'm taking is that, well, firstly, you have a lot of alignment between what you say and what you do. Because you're like, yeah, I talk about boundaries, so I assert boundaries. I'm like, yes, you actually do. And not everyone,
Yes.
but there is alignment between what you preach and what you actually practice. So
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the many beautiful things about you. But then also your wisdom in like taking things from dreams and applying it here is also beautiful, because I think that's something that people kind of shrug off a lot, that dreams are not important. And then like we spend a lot of our time asleep.
Oh my gosh. It's just another world.
So it's so meaningful that you're able to weave those pieces of your experience together and be able to
Mm-hmm.
offer that to people.
Absolutely.
So I'm also just thinking about the sessions that I've had the pleasure of having with you. And one of the things that I always take away is just a better understanding of breath. You're
Mm-hmm.
incorporating breathing practices into the sessions that you have. So I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about how breath can play a role in exploring and developing a stronger mind, body, and spirit connection.
Oh, so the breath is my favorite.
Mhm.
And the reason why is because it is our life. It's what our life force energy travels on. So as we breathe purposefully and consciously, the more that we do that, the more we're feeding our erotic life force energy. That's all.
Mhm.
And the more you practice it, the more powerful that energy becomes, and the more you can use it for your own healing,
Mhm.
because we can each heal ourselves. And when we do even do breath work together, we can heal each other. We can heal ourselves and each other at the same time. And I'm all about balance. It's all about balance. So breathing not only gives you oxygen, it actually it helps you move the energy. So I help people like move the breath to your second chakra, move the breath to your root chakra, right? Moving the breath consciously just makes you more alive.
Mhm.
And so I use Kundalini yoga methods for that. I use Taoist methods for that. And I usually point it toward whatever someone is dealing with at the time so that we can really focus on what's going on with you now. Oh, I feel it. It is because I'm an empath and an intuitive. I'm like, okay, this is your heart, like feel into your heart
Mhm.
chakra right now. Tune in to this part of your body. Because a lot of times we're trying to escape and we don't realize that we're dissociating.
Right.
So I help, especially for people who've experienced body trauma. I'm helping you get back in the body slowly and at your pace, because there are times when you actually do need to survive, and being in your body may not be good for you at the moment,
Mhm.
right? So it's going at your pace for your level of healing, and the breath can make you soar.
Yeah. That,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Experienced the pleasures of that through working with you, just how breath can sense you. But then, as you said, I think one of the magical things about your offering is just how you are able to meet people where they are. So the times where you know that disassociation is happening, you don't rush that process.
right.
Name it, you allow the person to experience it, but then you're like, hey, maybe now it's time to come back.
Yes.
The shoulder, then we're able to come back and resume. But you're very, very patient with the process. So I think that is also a testament to the success of your work and your offerings to people.
Ashe. And don't get me wrong, that breath piece is important also, not just for centering. There's so many different kinds of breath, right? For relaxation, for getting in your body, and then also for orgasmic, release, you know? So you can use it for a myriad of things. And even to travel between worlds, like you were saying with the dreaming.
Yeah.
That's just another way to travel between worlds.
Oh, I'm gonna think that tonight. If I have a dream, I'm like, I'm just traveling. I'm just
That's right.
exploring different dimensions.
Yeah.
So given that we were just on the topic of orgasms and just pleasure and how breath can also play a role in that. So given that we are still in the pandemic, many people are juggling with wanting to stay safe while also wanting to desire intimacy. And of course, everyone has a different definition of what they see as safe, especially right now. But I'm wondering, do you have any thoughts on the role that self-touch and or masturbation could play in these times, and what the benefit is of this kind of exploration and play?
Uh, there's so many things we can do for self-touch, okay, so even if we weren't in a pandemic, I would recommend that people do this, because it's so important to get to know yourself, to get to know your body,
Mm-hmm.
and to enjoy yourself, at whether you're with people or not, right? There are still many of us who believe that if once we're with someone, we don't have to touch ourselves anymore. And it's just a utilitarian thing, right? I'm not getting any, so I'll just touch myself.
Mm-hmm.
But if we start with touching ourselves, we start with pleasuring ourselves, we start with loving ourselves, then when we are with someone, we know even more how to be pleasured and how to tell them and communicate to them what the pleasure is that we need in the moment, right? So I can't remember. I just lost my train of thought. What was the question again?
Basically just about the role that masturbation or self-touch can play in these times. Maybe even let's just think about it for someone who has had a lot of shame around it in the past.
Mm,
talk themselves out of doing it, but now is in a situation where they don't feel safe going out and necessarily dating, and they're just like, okay, this body needs
yeah.
to be touched. What role does that play? Like, what is the science? What is the spiritual benefit of engaging with yourself in that way?
Mm. The spiritual benefit is that it, especially if you do it on a regular basis, even make it into a ritual. I love rituals. I love ceremony. You make it purposeful, you make it a ritual, then when you start doing that more and more, it's actually another way of self-healing too, right? And it's not just I need to get off,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's another way to explore the ways that you can get in your body to explore your sensations. So I recommend, people going on dates and having mutual masturbation time, right? Or, you can start talking about your fantasies more, right? Maybe it's even easier to talk about your fantasies because now you're looking at people this way and they're not right next to you. So there's a little bit of a barrier there, and it might actually help people come out of their shell a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm noticing that more and more as people are coming out of their shells because they're like, oh, I can be myself. And like, I don't have, there's not an expectation that you're going to touch me right now because we're talking about sex or because we're doing sex. And this is really great for anyone, people with multiple different types of sexual orientations,
Right.
right? People who may be more asexual or people who are more demisexual, So there's so many different ways that you can just explore. The possibilities are endless.
Right.
Honestly, they really are, including using BDSM, role play. All of that can be done online.
Mm-hmm.
All of it can be done virtually. And we used to do that on the phones. Like back in the day, before cell phones, I'm just saying, before cell phones existed, I was having lots of energetic sex on the phone through phone sex. And I couldn't even see the person. And I was having multiple orgasms.
The voice.
The voice, I mean, that again, it gets you in touch with your senses.
Mm-hmm.
And we've gotten so disconnected from our senses. So the sound, right? What we see, and the energy, the third eye and the energy, we keep sleeping on that. We can feel energy if we just relax into it. We can put a mind barrier in the way if we think, oh, well, they're not here, I'm not going to be able to feel it. That's a mental barrier. That's all. You'll start to get to feel it the more you practice it. And definitely the more you talk about your fantasies.
Yeah.
Woo! And your pleasures, right?
Wow, thank you for that. I'm just going to take a second to say hi to everyone in the audience who's listening to this conversation. As
Hello, everyone.
you are engrossed, and I hope that you are too. I hope you feel comfortable if you have any questions in just typing them in the comment box below, and also just reacting to all the wonderful things that Maisha is sharing with us, because I feel like there's just so many different pieces and gems that we're getting, and we want to make this as interactive as possible, given the limitations of us being on this little screens on our phones. But yeah, we're going to just continue going with the flow here. So another thing that I appreciate about your approach is that, like Audre Lorde, you talk about the erotic both as an energy and as a tool. So can you share a little bit more about your erotic discovery sessions and what you have learned about eroticism through embarking on this journey with your clients? And I can also
What I,
just about, as you said, like outside of sex, the erotic is a tool.
yes,
Like,
yes, yes.
how, for someone who isn't, who's new to that school of thought, or
Mm-hmm.
how that can actually be a thing, can you
Yeah.
like share how that can be applied in everyday life?
So the erotic, the way I see it, and it's definitely, it resonated with me with Audre Lorde immediately in my life, is that the erotic energy really is about our connection to everything.
Mm-hmm.
It really is our life force energy. It's also, so the way that I say it is for different people who come from different backgrounds, the erotic energy is the same as your chi, your prana, right? Like all of those different things, it's the same thing. It's the energy, the life force that runs through your body. It's what animates us, right? It's what makes our whole bodies work because we're spirit. We're spirits in human form. And what makes us move, what makes us breathe life into these bodies when we are first born is erotic energy.
Mm.
So we all have it. And it definitely is used to create your goals, your visions, to make your dreams come true. It's the magic and energy behind that for each one of us. None of us don't have that.
Mm.
It may be sleeping, it may be dormant, it may be blocked. We may be afraid of it, so we hide it and press it down deep under. And, that's why becoming your authentic self more and more helps awaken it.
Right.
Just like the Kundalini energy that people talk about at the base of the root chakra, that's where the Kundalini energy lies, right? And when you start opening the door to that, I'm just saying, your world opens up. It's so much more than sex, and it also can be included in sex because sex is a part of our lives. And every religion, organized religion of the past have tried to separate that,
Mhm.
the sex from the spirit, the sexual from the spiritual, but they've always been one and the same. They've always been one and the same. So now we're trying to unlearn that. Now we're trying to bring them back into alignment. And that's what the erotic energy is, because it's used to connect us all and fight each other's battles so we can all be free. Like what you're saying with the HIV and with like all of the things that plague our communities, from white supremacy, the COVID, all of these things, these are all products of colonialism, capitalism, and everything else. Like it's a part of all of that. This is a way for us to get back in line and like be like, F all of those things. I'm not here for white supremacy no more. I'm not here for white people trying to make them feel better or trying to teach them how to treat me. Now, what I'm here for is to try to get back to myself. That's what I'm here for now. Because all that does is drain me.
Yeah.
And that's what I used to do. I used to be an activist. I mean, I still am an activist now. I'm a healing arts activist. I just shifted it
Mm-hmm.
because I got drained so much from doing anti-racism work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? And it's the same thing keeps happening. So why not build up our power instead
Mm-hmm.
and then take over the world? That's all I got to say.
Hey, I'm,
That's all.
I'm 100% with that. So shifting gears, kind of, but not really actually. No, still on the same topic. So many people struggle to understand how sexual healing and BDSM can work in conjunction with each other.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
For people who've just heard misconceptions about what BDSM is, they're like, how can that be healing? That sounds like,
Yeah.
can't put these two together. From your perspective, can you describe how people can find healing through BDSM? And
Oh, absolutely.
I'm just going to take my notes.
Yes, I absolutely can. So again, it all has to do with consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
right? So whenever we're conscious, that's going to help us with whatever it is we're choosing to do. And it's about intention.
Mm-hmm.
So even in the work that I do, if you're using BDSM in a way that's not intentional, in a way that's not safe, in the way that does not honor boundaries and consent,
Mm-hmm.
then no, it may not be healing.
Yeah.
Right? But it can be very healing if you're with people that that you've taken the time to get to know,
Mm-hmm.
right? That you've actually had multiple conversations about what your boundaries are and what theirs are, and where you're actually doing consensual behaviors, but also for like such a higher purpose, right? Some of us do it because it helps us heal, but some people just do it because it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then they end up healing things in the process and that they didn't realize they would heal.
Right.
Right? Becoming a top, for instance, can give you confidence, can build your confidence, but so can becoming a bottom,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because then it helps you get to know who you are and what it is you want. When I started coming up in the BDSM world back in the day, 2000 something, 7, 9, wait, no, sorry, 1990. Never mind. It doesn't, that
Some point.
1999. It was 1999. It was literally 1999.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in 1999, and those subsequent years, what I had to learn was that I actually had to think about what it was that I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And before the BDSM community, no one ever asked me that.
Mm.
I didn't know. And I literally had no clue what I wanted. I'm like, whatever you want. No.
Wow.
And that's what happens with a lot of people when they first start. They don't know what they want. It's like, there's so much on the menu. What do I
Right.
choose? What do you want? And then that's how we can harm each other, right? And harm ourselves without realizing it. So it's another way to get to know yourself so that you can understand what your boundaries are
Mm-hmm.
and that you learn what consent really is for you. And that's going to look different for everybody.
Yeah.
And sometimes even doing role play can really heal you
Mm-hmm.
and turn you on at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
right? It can move energy that's been stuck and hasn't been able to be released in any other way than through this specific role play moment,
Right.
right? And that's kind of edgy.
Mm-hmm.
It's edgy, right? Because it also involves the psyche.
Right.
It's not just your body involved, it's your psyche and your intention. So it's about making sure you're with someone who has loving intentions.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who you're like, I need you to be mean to me and talk dirty to me and be la la la. And they're like, yes, because I want to give you what you want for
Mm-hmm.
your pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
I can do that. And what I find interesting is that some people will be like, no, I'm not doing that because I don't want to hurt you. And I'm like, I'm telling you, I'm not going to be hurt. So then there's that whole thing where people try to be people's rescuers when they don't want to be rescued.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a dance.
Mm-hmm.
There's a dance that must be played, and people sometimes can rush into BDSM and not understand that it is an edgy thing to do, but it can be healing. I would not recommend going into it for the healing
Mm-hmm.
because you still have to do your own personal work, and your partner, your BDSM partner, should not be your therapist,
Mm-hmm.
should not be that responsible for your triggers. You're going to be responsible for your own triggers, right? And y'all talk about what those are. You let that person know, okay, I'm triggered by this. These things trigger me. So then they're prepared. But don't put it all on them. Don't give them all the power. It's a power exchange. It's not a power give up.
Right.
It's an exchange. You both have power. You all have power.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm just thinking, I feel like, as we said, during this pandemic, people have had like a lot of time to, well, sometimes time to think through their feelings, their emotions, their sexuality in new and exciting ways. So I'm hearing from so many people that, they want to explore BDSM now. They want to go to a sex dungeon now. They just want to do all the things. But then,
Yes.
okay, where is the community? Is it like a password to a website that I need? An way that I just slide through in New York, or like
Yeah.
people just want
Yeah.
to know what access code is, and I'm
Yes.
just
There are lots.
but I'm wondering, maybe even from your own personal experiences, like how did you enter or move into the BDSM side of exploring sexuality?
I just asked a friend, I was like, I had a desire. It started with a desire. I wanted my partner to spank me. And she was like, what? And I didn't know where it came from. I just felt it. I felt it and I wanted it and I desired it and I asked for it.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't something that she felt comfortable doing. And later, a year or so later after we broke up, I went and found, I just started asking people. And now you've got the internet. We didn't have, I don't know if the internet was even around yet, but if it was, it wasn't as accessible as I think
Mm-hmm.
AOL and things like that were there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There was AOL and stuff. But right now you can literally Google. Google definitely wasn't around. Google BDSM and find, especially leather. I actually got into the leather community.
Hmm.
That's how I learned because they taught you. They taught you how to be safe, sane, and consensual, which was the terminology back then. And now I think the terminology is risk aware,
Hmm.
right? But whatever terminology you use, it's about, like not being drunk or high while you're doing it. So you have all your faculties so you can
Yeah.
actually consent, things like that. So I lost my train of thought again, but it's a really important that you, like Sex Down South, for instance. It's a great resource. There's tons of different presenters. I've taught there before. I've actually held healing space there before because they have a healing room
Hmm.
so that you can actually come and like get away from all of the activity and just get some healing services, which I really appreciate for that type of experience. And Sex Down South doesn't just have BDSM, but they have all kinds of things around sexuality. So that would be a place I would start because then they'll lead you to other resources, other teachers, other communities. But if you go to leather conferences, that's where I learned everything. If you just Google leather conferences, now most of them, they're all doing them online now or doing some sort of hybrid. That's where you learn. A lot of people jump into it without knowing the risks and aren't safe.
Hmm.
So I always say, learn, learn, learn. You can never learn too much. And play.
Hmm.
That was the other piece around the healing power of BDSM is that it allows you to be a child again, to play. And we forget that, that is the most erotic energy, is that initial, that life force energy of how we are when we're children and we're young and we're not burdened by all the stuff that society has like put on us so that we are not ourselves, right? So that we unlearn all of our intuition.
Right.
So being playful and being curious is extremely important.
Hmm. Agreed. Agreed. I'm going to take this question that I can see in the comments here, and share it with you now. So, could someone argue that if men had been closer to their chi due to their ability to more easily express their erotic energy in this society? Is that clear? Should I read it one more time?
If men were closer to their chi,
Could someone argue that men have been closer to chi due to their ability to more easily express their erotic energy in this society?
I understand the question. Interestingly, I would actually not say that because they're I don't know that they're necessarily always expressing their erotic energy, because the erotic energy really comes from the power within you, right? And the way that you use your power to move yourself versus trying to have power over others. And many times it's this power over other people. And that's really about anger, violence, and rage and internalized oppression. And so the internalized oppression comes from repressing their feminine energy, which really is the yang feminine energy, which I talk about with my students. We have a balance of masculine energy, feminine energy, yin feminine energy, yang feminine energy, yin masculine energy, yang masculine energy, and our society is sort of in this unbalanced yang masculine energy place, which is just goal oriented and nothing else. When if a man, and you're talking about, I'm guessing a cis heterosexual man who's privileged in this society has, learned that they can do whatever they want and take whatever they want whenever they want. So they're not necessarily embodied. They're not necessarily erotically embodied because they don't have to feel any of that. We're talking erotic energy is about feeling it all, right? Feeling it all and accessing it all on a much deeper, much more profound and magical level. So they may have more opportunities to do that, yes, because they're privileged to have those opportunities. Is everyone accessing that? Is the question.
Mm.
Are they accessing the powerful aspects of their feminine energy, or are they afraid of it? Because from what I've seen is that men are afraid of women. When I'm talking cis, overall, gendered. I really have a hard time with all with the just the binary gender piece. But in general, as far as like this hetero patriarchy is concerned, is yeah, we can do whatever we want. There's no consequences, so therefore, I don't even have to feel. So that hurts them because they don't even aren't allowed. We don't allow them to have feelings because that's too close to quote unquote gendered femininity.
Mm,
Right? When I say all of these yang and yin, feminine and masculine energy, I'm talking about energy, not gender.
right.
But we conflate that to mean gender, and then that's why women are hated. That's why there's misogynoir, because they hate their own femininity inside. They are not allowed to express it, and that's what the erotic energy rides on.
Wow. Yeah, and I'd love if you could actually like just deepen, lean into that a bit because yeah, I think when we have these conversations about sexual liberation, a lot of the time, people are talking in terms of like binaries. People talk
Mm-hmm.
about men and women, and I would love if we could just explore, what it means to be fluid, to be non-binary, to possess duality or multiplicities in that way, and what that could mean in terms of your own sexual liberation. If you could just share,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that is something that you are great at talking about.
Oh, absolutely. This is so close to my heart, right? As someone who is feminine appearing and just very what everyone decides is feminine in this culture, like people have not seen or witnessed the parts of me that are inherently masculine energy, right? I'm only allowed to do these certain things and to be this certain way, right? Men it's the same, with other genders it's the same, which is why our society can't seem to get their mind around transgender, non-binary and fluid genders,
Mm,
right? And even all of the multiple ways that sexes exist in our culture. We just look at man and woman as though there aren't multiple sexes, right? With all the different types of ways that X and Y chromosomes can interact. That's our culture, white supremacy.
mhm.
They hid that. With intersex people, they hid that. They made their parents choose what sex they wanted them to be and did harmful surgeries on them without their consent as babies, right? Just so that it could fit into this specific way that we view men, women, and sex and gender,
Mhm.
right? So if you blew all that shit up, what would you explore?
Right.
Would you touch another woman's body if you were a cis heterosexual woman just to have fun without being afraid that someone would think that you were homosexual? Oh no. Right? I mean, would you allow yourself to explore another man's body if you were a man and you were heterosexual and cisgender
Mhm.
without thinking that there was something wrong with you and that you had to like harm that man after doing it,
Right.
right? Harming the part in you that loves it and enjoys it because our society tells you you can't.
Mhm.
That's what happens. So if you just was like, fuck all that, I
Right.
just want to explore and I just want to play. When we're kids, we just explore and play. We are not concerned with the motherfucker's gender.
Right.
We're not concerned with it. That happens later. It gets beat into us. So I say be non binary in your energy, in your body, in your fluidity, in your explorations. You know, put on strap ons if you want to, like, I'll have a strap on. I have multiple. I'm saying,
Awesome.
yeah, jack off with your strap on. I'm just saying, jack off with your strap on. You know what I'm saying?
Hashtag.
Feel, yes. Ashe. Feel your masculine energy, which is the active energy. And
Hmm.
that's what it is. Your masculine energy is the active energy,
Hmm.
right? The goal-oriented energy.
Yeah.
Feel yours, explore yours. Use it. Use it consciously and intentionally. When you do that, you are most powerful. And this is what they've been trying to keep from us, our power. They're trying to keep us from living in our power.
Mm-hmm.
And we do that by othering everyone
Right.
and hiding from ourselves. So explore. That's
Excellent.
my answer.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Looking at the time, we have 5 minutes. If anyone has a quick question, please drop in the comment box. I'm going to try and get through um, two more questions here. One of them being, given that at Unite We Rise, we are passionate about censoring and uplifting the voices and work of Black leaders and visionaries in the effort to end the HIV epidemic, I'm wondering what you think needs to be done to ensure that Black voices and stories are recognized and honored in the spheres of sex, sexuality, and public health in general. Like, what is the shift? You know, we're talking about dismantling and, you know, having collective power to just overthrow all of these systems.
Yes.
I'm wondering if there are other things that you feel in this moment when I ask that question.
I think the main thing is we need to keep getting the word out the same way we're doing right now, and have panels, have, conferences, have, like, they're out there. I mean, especially here in Atlanta, And there are people doing research. I have a friend who does research HIV. She's a PhD. She does HIV research with regard to the LGBTQI community, because, we get left out of a lot of the research now, even though HIV began in the LGBTQ community, and then it's actually shifted to a more heteronormative lens.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas it doesn't have to be either or. It's all of us.
Mm-hmm.
It's all of us. So it's like remembering to put all of these people on your panels, on your boards, in leadership roles, so that you can see the diversity of who this affects. It affects us all, and including elderly people, including senior citizens, our elders especially. It's on the HIV has been on the rise in senior facilities and senior living areas. What are the buildings where they like live by themselves? Like, I'm losing the words on that, but it's basically like an adult living community, but you're not being, you're living on your own,
Yeah.
right? So they're having sex like crazy. People think old people don't have sex, and they're not erotic.
They haven't,
Again,
from what I've heard.
what are y'all doing? Like,
Their notes. They're
man, people on hospice be having sex. My grandfather was on hospice having sex with his next door neighbor.
good for him.
I'm telling you, we don't stop having sex because we're old. We have to stop desexualizing people, and we have to start centralizing our pleasure,
Right.
and letting everyone centralize their pleasure. Stop judging each other. Stop judging yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we fight back. And that's how HIV can be lived. You can have HIV and still experience pleasure,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because we say, oh, if you have HIV, you're not allowed to do this, this, and this. Then there's the plague, there's this stigma, there's this, you can't do that. You have this, right? And they were doing that in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
That was happening in the beginning when the epidemic first started.
Yeah.
And now it's still a part of that. It's just hidden. It's this hidden, silent stigma
Right.
that says you're either that means you're promiscuous, or it means that you should never have sex again. I'm sorry, you still need to centralize your pleasure.
Yeah.
You still need to centralize your pleasure.
I love
And it's again about boundaries and consent. So
course. And you've just actually answered two questions in one. So that was beautiful. So now I get to ask another one because I have cram things in here. But in this last question, I think for people even watching this, I'm sure some people are like, how are they just on Instagram talking about sex this openly, talking about orgasms and BDSM and spanking and all of that.
mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering what allowed you to, or did you have to like develop this confidence to be able to talk about sex freely in this way? And if so, what helped you to evolve and to be in this space that you're in this moment?
Oh, I always loved talking about sex. It came natural to me. So the sex part, talking confidently about sex, has never been a challenge, but talking about it publicly was a challenge at first, just because I felt that I was being judged in my early years of doing this work publicly. So, but then I stopped feeling that way. And also, I'm almost 50. So I don't care. Like, I don't care. And I know the most important thing, really, I'm being playful and truthful at the same time. But really, it was a bigger thing because it was my calling. And that's when I realized I can't keep pretending that what I need to say doesn't need to be heard.
Right.
Right. So it's about it being my calling, and I must do the work. And so this, for me, is the work.
Wow. Thank you so much, Maisha. I could talk to you for days, weeks, months,
You're
but
funny.
was so grateful for you
Mm-hmm.
for joining us today and just for bringing your whole self to this conversation. I know that I'm taking so much from this, and I'm sure that everyone who dropped in and listened is also doing the same. So thank you. This live is going to be saved, and we'll be able to share it, and you'll be able to rewatch if you missed anything. But
Fantastic.
thank you, thank you. And so everyone, please mark your calendars for part 2 of this series, which will be a discussion in 2 weeks, I believe, September 22nd at 7 o'clock. Again, every black body. I'm still thinking about all the good things that just absorbed into my brain. But the Every Black Body live series is hosted by United We Rise. Make sure to follow us on Every Black Body on IG, which is this platform right here, on Twitter and YouTube, and go to our website, everyblackbody.org, and share in the comments what other topics you'd like us to explore. Maisha, do you have any closing words or places where you'd like people to find you?
Yeah. First, I want you to just honor your body, honor your senses, and trust yourself. You know the answers. You can find me on blackgirltantra.com and on Black Girl Tantra at Instagram too. So, uh, everything that you need is on blackgirltantra.com. That's my website. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.